Let's try that again. Welcome to Fly Nubian Money, where we help you master your mindset and maximize your money. I am Laura Lalaki, international real estate agent, and your host for today. Today, we're discussing a deeply emotional and complex story involving Keontae Means. She's a young mother who recently had tragic events that have left many of us reflecting on her story and the challenges of love, family, and regret. Before this tragedy, Keontae was open on social media about her feelings, expressing a longing to reconcile with her father of her child, and her posts reveal a desire for stability and a struggle with letting go. Now, as we discuss this, we'll dive deep into the emotional impact of relationship choices, the feelings of wanting to be loved, and the toll that unfulfilled relationships can take on someone's well being. So, let's explore how love, regret, and the need for stability can drive decisions and affect mental health. But before I move on, this content and this discussion, we're going to be talking about suicide, which may be distressing to some who are listening or watching. So please proceed with caution if you're sensitive to this topic. And remember, it's okay to take a break or skip this content if you feel overwhelmed, because your mental health is really important. So, we are going to be talking about sensitive things. We also want to point out that you can also get help at any time by using 988. If you or someone that you love is in crisis, whether they're considering suicide or not, dial 988 to reach the toll free lifeline so you can speak directly to a trained crisis counselor. Calls are free, confidential, and availability is 24/7. Now, today I have an excellent panel with me today, my co-queens and our king. We have Erica Lewis, author of Faith in Transition. We have Joe Corley, who is a licensed therapist, mental wellness coach, and educator. We have Athena Gardner, CPA and wealth coach. And we have Minister Connie, businesswoman and author. So as you can see, we have a full panel here. But we also absolutely love when you talk to us because we talk back. So we will be monitoring the comments and be pulling some of those up as well. So before we move on, I am going to bring up the video about this and then we'll get right into our discussion.
Everyone always says, "Is there a red flag, or was there a warning?" Right? We don't see that here. We don't see that warning or that red flag or that indicator that would assume that things have taken a very long-term turn for the worst. So either something happened suddenly, or that's the spotty area that we're not quite sure right now. The best we can do for the families is to, down the road, recover the bodies if we can, and at least have that closure for the family. The why is going to be a very difficult question for us to ask.
So you'll see that you saw a couple of comments that said Diamond Scott. That is the young lady, Keontae. That was her social media name. So that was some of her posts that she posted. Now, it is known that she was really struggling with the relationship of her youngest child. Now, her children's ages were 9 years old, and the baby was 4 or 5 months old, and it was the baby's father who she wanted the relationship back with. So this leads us into an initial question, and I'm going to ask everyone on the panel this. I'm going to start with you, Minister Connie. What does it mean to have a stability in a relationship, and how important is it for mental and emotional well-being to feel secure in your relationship?
Well, first, trust is always trust and being honest. Um, I believe because she had a 5-month-old baby, sometimes we go through the baby blues because I know I did. I had it very, very badly. I had miscarriage at 6.5 months, and then 3 months later, my son passed away, my 2-year-old son. So I really struggled with mental health during that time. And there was days I woke up and I didn't even want to be here. So I know the struggle. It's really hard. You don't know because you got all these hormones going on, they're going crazy in your body. You don't know if you want to live or you're happy or you're sad, you're crying. You're going through so many emotions. So just imagine going through baby blues and then the death of your son. So I was going through that and grieving, and it was awful. So during that time, my ex-husband did not understand all that, and so he made it even harder on me. So at that time, the trust and honesty just went right out the door. All the things we built, it just went out the door because I was not functioning as a wife because of my depression.
I think a lot of times people just assume, and I have been told, as you, I'm going to be very upfront. I too struggled with that. I had my son at the age of 16 years old. Not only was I dealing with being a teenager, a young teenage mother whose dreams had been absolutely stripped from her, I was dealing with a man or a boy. We were kids that stepped and walked away from everything, and that was devastating to me. And my whole world had fallen apart. But one thing that I constantly heard is just snap out of it, trust in God, and you'll be fine. And I know those things, but that's totally different than what's going on in your body. Your body is changing. Your body is still dealing with pregnancy and the hormones that you have, but it's not something that you just get over and without some kind of help. And I did need the help, and I didn't get it at the time, and I ended up suffering from depression for many years afterwards. So that's my experience with this. So my heart breaks for this young lady and these children, because she also worked in domestic violence, so she knows something of that world, but unfortunately she couldn't do it for herself. Now, Joe, I'm going to ask you the same question, because you are our resident therapist. How much does it really mean to have that stability in a relationship, and how important is it for the mental and emotional well-being in your relationship?
So I'm going to say something and I repeat often, that we all come in with one thing in common, into this world. I mean, and that is the desire for love and affection. And we want that. We all seek it. We all try to develop a healthy relationship with that. And sometimes it gets unstable early in life, through parenting or whatever. And because of that, we seek out different levels of security, when we're talking about love and affection, and we have a different idea or perception of what that looks like. And sometimes we'll hold on to situations that are unhealthy for us because they're familiar to us. So to answer your question, what does it mean? What does it look like? It is essential. It is essential. It's like I said, it's like the one thing that we all have in common. Like I said it many times before, if a person is not looking or seeking love, then they're probably either deeply traumatized or there's a chemical imbalance going on somewhere within them. And if we can't find that stability, it can cause us to do our behavior shows up very harmful. We can have some very harmful behavior as a result of it.
I agree. And then also our support systems have a lot to play into this as well, I believe. Athena, I'm going to ask you the same question. I mean, you're our single person here, young single person, and she was 33 years old. What does it mean to you to have the stability in the relationship? And is it important for the mental and emotional well-being in your relationships?
Well, me and her are the same age, and this is something I often talk with other women, that we are facing things often, and because of shame or guilt or whatever, we rather go through things alone than to be judged by other people and other women. And unfortunately, instead of her opening up about what she was facing earlier on it got to the point where she finally expressed some things when she was further down the line. Now, she had just given birth. She could have been going through some postpartum depression, blues type of situation. But there are other women, and I'll share more about this later with my own personal stories, but especially with Black women, the pressure to perform, the pressure to show up in society a certain way, and the pressure to take a lot of criticism and judgment within all of that, sometimes we are more prone and likely to face depression or feeling alone or having feelings of unworthiness that increases our rate of suicidal ideations and wanting to enact such things.
I agree. But you never know what other people are going through too. So, you don't know how many people you're walking by every day. You never know what's really going through their heads. Eric, I would love to hear your thoughts on the stability of a relationship and how important it is for mental and well-being overall in a relationship. Your thoughts?
Yes, it is so important to be stable. I'm getting emotional about this because I'm thinking about my last relationship. Oh God, I don't want to cry. And I remember being in that relationship towards the end. It was the loneliest time of my life. I lived with him. He was in the house. We did things together, but I was still lonely. And I think a lot of times what people don't realize is the loneliest person in the room, they're surrounded by a whole bunch of people. But her love language, she wasn't receiving it, but she also probably couldn't say what it was that she needed. Her mother is probably saying, hey girl, I'm here. Her aunties, I'll babysit if you need to. And the child's father, the kid's father, he's going to work, he's paying the bills, but something is missing. And you know what? She may not have even been aware of what was missing because she was so disconnected from everyone and disconnected from herself. It's very tragic and it's very heartbreaking. And this is so young.
So very young. And not only that, they have still yet to be able to recover the bodies for the family. This happened in Niagara Falls. So the chances of finding the bodies are very slim. So there isn't any closure for that either. But we're going to get back into this conversation. We're going to take a short break and we'll get right back into some comments.
Hey, if you're just tuning in, you are watching Fly Nubian Money, where we help you master your mindset and maximize your money. I am Tiara Williams. I'm also known as Miss Black Hollywood, and I am the proud producer of this show. So I hope that every day when you join us, you leave a little smarter than you came, because that's the point. Otherwise, why are you watching? So if you want to receive notices for when we go live, Fly Nubian Money goes live every single day. That's Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you don't know, now you know. All you have to do is text the word Queens. That's Queens. That's Queens to 87948. That's 87948. That's Queens to 87948. Yes. If you want.
Yes, 87948. Text the word Queens. But I also want to remind you, as our producer says, we are here Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. But guess what we do this weekend, guys? We fall back. So don't miss us next week. Don't miss us next week because it will be an hour behind, right? You know you love being here. So I want to dive back into a couple of more things, but I want to address a couple of the comments that we have. Veronica says, I went through postpartum depression. It must have been what she was going through. And Big Mac said, that's why I try not to judge too harshly unless I can get the facts and put myself in other shoes. And I think that's one thing that we all need to learn. You never know what someone else is going through. So it behooves you to be kind to everyone you are around. Even a smile, and people laugh at me. That's like one of my mottos. Even a smile can uplift somebody's day. If you stand behind somebody in a line and you like their shoes, say, "Oh, girl, I love your shoes." You never know when something like that is going to change somebody's day or save their life. Now, the thing around this tragedy is that she was regretting a breakup from the baby's father. She stated in her own words that she kept telling him that she didn't want him, she didn't need him around, and then she she regretted that decision later and really wanted him back in her life. So I'd like to know from the panel, and I'll start with you, Athena, have you ever regretted a breakup?
No. No, listen. If you fumble the goddess, that's on you, honey. If anything, the men be coming back to me. But this is, we're gonna keep the seriousness of the topic going. What I did though is, I understand what women, especially, could be facing in this situation. When I started off my career and I graduated from grad school, that whole time I was working for my first company out of college, I was depressed. First 3 weeks at work, I got into a serious car accident in Atlanta. I was in basically a therapist's chair weekly from then on. And I realized it got really bad when my boyfriend, then fiance at the time, was like, I think you need to see somebody. And I was like, no, I'm just sad right now. Da, 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 da. No, girl. I realized it was really bad because I started to have like suicidal ideation. I was like, oh, I gotta see somebody. Thank the Lord. My father had that good insurance, honey, because I was in that therapist's office every week and I had to pay $0 for the copay. I was like, my daddy is the man with this insurance, to keep it light. But it was very bad. And I think outside of different situations, I didn't have support. And I think a lot of women don't have support. And support is often the change maker in these situations, because when you truly feel alone, I was living in this brand spanking apartment with a great view in Atlanta, starting working at this firm. On paper, by society, I'm winning. But in my heart, in my spirit, in my soul, I felt like I was dying inside. And I put on a mask. I remember going into the office, crying in the bathroom stall every day for a year, wiping my tears, washing my face, and going into work, or crying in the parking lot. So, people face things all the time. And I think we need to be more supportive and understanding, especially in certain work situations, especially.
Well, that leads to another good question. I know that you didn't experience that, but Joe, how common is it to feel like you've made a mistake after ending a relationship? And how do people typically cope with those feelings? I know that you probably see this in your office. So what is your experience with this?
My personal experience with regret in relationship is, I've had some regret. I usually regret I didn't end those relationships sooner. That's probably where it comes from. But from my perspective as a therapist, I want to talk about how regret is a very, very complicated emotion, because it's the start of a real huge cognitive distortion. And we believe, that we want to go back in time and change the circumstances of decisions that we've made in order to produce better outcomes today. Well, that's not possible. Like, that's not going to happen. So what do we do? Where do we go from there? Because there's no time machines. We can't go backwards. And that's when we have to, first of all, like, really deal with community is what it takes a lot of times. Get in these therapists, like Athena said, get in these therapist couches, sit down and process what you have done, and start to learn how to forgive yourself for the choices that you made, because you cannot go back. There's nothing you can do. And a lot of times, those of us that get to the point of suicide, I myself, tried to take my own life twice, because you cannot process the fact that you can't go backwards. And the shame is tied to you, and it's an anchor. It weighs you down. So revealing that shame and then confronting it is where the healing begins. We have to get it out. And we have to get it out in community. Holding things in secret is where the struggle begins. Is you're not meant to take, if you're not able, then you're not meant to take that journey alone. Get some help, and don't be afraid to get some help.
I think that's where the stigma comes in, because a lot of the times, especially in our community, even though we talk about it all the time and we have therapists, a lot of time on our panel, people are told that you don't need a therapist. I can tell you, when I lost my sisters, there were family members that actually said to me, because I went to therapy, And I'm not afraid of therapy, but many of them actually said to me, you don't need therapy, you just need Jesus. Now, listen, I'm a firm believer in God and I'm a firm believer in Jesus, but I also know that he gave me the good sense, thank God, to know when I need to go and get some help. And so I think there is a stigma that we feel like we're weak or we don't have enough faith to move forward in our hurt, in our sadness, in our depression, like they don't exist. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that, Minister Connie, because I know you've experienced this, but you also understand from the religious side where I'm coming from. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
You know, I wish that when I was going through, I call them the baby blues, and grieving, that I would have talked to people, but I wanted to look like I was strong, so I didn't talk to anyone. And what happened, I developed anxiety attacks. And then the anxiety attacks turned into panic attacks. So I end up having a panic disorder. I wish I would have got therapy. What I end up doing many, many years later, because I understand how it is to be depressed out of your mind, because that's where I was. Now, luckily, I was healed. The Lord healed me of my panic attacks and disorder. But I end up opening up a mental health clinic with my girlfriend. So we have a mental health clinic here in Pittsburgh, because one thing that happens, we as Black people, we don't believe that we should go to therapy. Okay. One of the things that happened when my husband and I lost our son, he said, I am not talking to a therapist. So myself and my son, that was 8 years old, we went and seen a therapist, helped us a whole lot. But the problem was we were getting help and he wasn't. So therefore, it even grieved me even more, because I had that struggle of being depressed and then dealing with a marriage that was falling apart because he was hurting too. So one thing we don't do, we need to sit down and talk to someone, even tell a close friend that you feel confident in about what your struggles is. I have people to come to me and talk to me all the time, and we never know what people's going through, because I secretly held that in because I wanted to look strong in front of my family and friends to say, oh, she's handling all these problems really good, but it started affecting me mentally. It's going to come out one way or another.
And sometimes it can manifest into something in your body. Now, you stated that you had anxiety attacks. Yes, I understand that. I too, and recently experienced what that meant for the first time in my life. That's not a pleasant thing. But
Oh,
when
no.
you hold things in, it can turn into cancer. It can turn into diabetes. It can turn into so many different things. And what people don't understand is your whole body. You are mind, body, and spirit.
Yes.
That is a whole totality in something. So when one is off, the others also react to that. Erica, now listen, this whole thing revolves around love. And I would like to know, do you feel that the role that love plays makes our decisions irrational or irrational sometimes? And how can it cloud our judgment and include regrets? Is there something that we can do to help balance that offset of maybe going to get help with therapy? We know we want to do that, but if you were speaking to someone, because you know about life in transition, if we aren't there yet, where we are afraid to go to speak to someone, how is it that we can start dealing with this within ourselves?
I talk about this in my book. You have to stop and breathe. You have to stop and breathe. The first thing we do when we get upset, when we start having anxiety, is you automatically stop breathing. And the first thing you did when you were born is you breathed. It's the very first thing. The doctors made sure you took a breath. And when you stop breathing, now thoughts start racing through. Your heart is beating. Your body is physically fighting for itself because it just wants you to breathe. Sometimes you just need to stop, breathe. And you know what? You might need to just go away. You might need to step away. You might need to take the kids and drop them off and say, I need a minute. You might need to get in the car and tell your partner, I need a minute. You need to take a beat. Another thing is, I think the love that we receive growing up in our parents' house versus the love we crave and desire are two different sets of love. The first love that you have, the first friends that you have are the people that are in your house, your parents. And I don't know about you all, but growing up in my house, I heard it. I ain't your friend. I ain't your friend.
Yes.
And with your parents, I think parents need to realize, yeah, you kind of are the first friend your kid knows. They wake up to you, you put them to sleep, you feed them. And it's so important for that connection to be there. Yes, the authority has to be there, but you have to have a keen understanding that you have to keep the window cracked a little bit so that you can get information and energy funneled to you so when you can know something is off. You may not need that window crack when they're, in the house every day, but just because your child is 25 or 30 years old doesn't mean that you don't need to know what's going on. So it is so important that as a parent, that you let your kids know, I am here. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to support.
I love that answer. It starts with you're right. That's true. That is your first best friend. Do y'all remember a lot of times when babies see their daddies and mommies coming home, they get so excited. That's your best friend.
Drop everything
your best friend.
and take off.
Exactly. We are going to continue this conversation, and we're going to take a little short break and a breather because it's pretty heavy. But before we go to commercial, I'm going to ask you, while we're at commercial, want to hear what our audience has to say about what are your coping mechanisms and strategies when you're feeling sad. We'll be right back.
You want to grow your money and not blow your money, as Constance says, check us out at flynubianmoney.com. There's all kinds of resources, programs, videos, resources. In 2024, there's no reason to be broke when there's information all around us. So get your money right. flynubianmoney.com.
FlyNubianMoney.com. We have so much there for you guys to get your money right, because a lot of the times when you don't know where to start, you can just go there and say, listen, I don't even know where I begin. And we have a beginning point for you, because if you really want it, all you need to do is get on that starting line, because once you get on the starting line, you can see the goal. So you want to make sure that you go to flynubianmoney.com. I want to continue this conversation. This is a very deep, but I think it's also very needed. Pretty Brown Mimi said, yes, unfortunately, there's still a stigma when it comes to seeking therapy in the Black communities. We can do both, therapy and Jesus, or whatever faith you practice. I truly believe in that. I do believe my faith is the only thing that stopped me from even taking that step that this poor young lady decided to do, and with her children, which makes it all the more tragic. It wasn't just her. She leaves behind her family and the father of her children, his own dynamics to have to deal with this as well. I'm pretty sure that he is really going through it. Joe, can you please give us some tips that you can help people with on coping with these situations when it comes to love? You talked about us wanting to go back to what we felt comfortable, or go back and try to change something that can't be changed. But what are some tools that you could share with us that we can start taking today?
So the first thing is always go to therapy, okay? And if you can't find, you're having some situations in therapy that aren't working for you, find another therapist. You keep doing and searching until you find the one that fits you, first of all. Now, what do you do in between those therapy sessions? I'm someone who goes to therapy weekly, and the coping comes in between those therapy sessions. If I'm sad, I'll exercise. If I'm overthinking, I'll start writing. And if I'm angry, I'll listen to music. These are some of the strategies that help deal with some of these super strong emotions. When you're, like I said, when you're overthinking, let's deal with whatever it is that you're thinking about. Like I keep saying, no emotion is meant to be pushed away. I'm really upset right now. I'm angry. Where is this coming from? Let me just start writing it out. When is the first time I remember feeling this exact way in my life? and let me think about that time. And when I started to develop these beliefs about myself that are kind of pushing my behavior or pushing my feelings and emotions towards this direction. And specifically, when you talk about heartbreak, a lot of people do kind of what Minister Connie said. They want to appear strong instead of dealing with and accepting that your heart is broken and sitting in those feelings for a minute and recognizing that your heart is hurt. All right. Let's be real about that. And then let's start being honest about what is not going to help. It's not going to help us to go stalking social media profiles. It's not going to help us to unblock those numbers and send all those text messages or go back through those old pictures and read those old letters. Those things aren't going to make us feel better. So we have to then be honest and be confrontational with ourselves and be like, let me do something that is going to help me feel better. Like I said, go exercise, go spend some time, go take yourself out on a date, show yourself some love, self-love, and then start moving in that direction and avoiding the things that make you feel worse.
I
If
think
I
you said
could,
a key word.
if
Oh,
I
go
could
ahead,
chime,
Erica.
I'm sorry, I just want to chime in there because one of the things I talked to a good friend of mine about a few months ago is she needed to make a decision on something, but she was afraid to because the fear was living with the decision. Sometimes it's not the decision to walk away from something that makes you unhappy. It's living with the decision. And that's when you make a plan as to what your life will look like once you make a decision. Sometimes decisions are made so emotionally, there's no thought process to what it's going to look like tomorrow or after the decision has been made. I use this as an example. I think this young lady broke up with her child's father. And then, the next day it's like, oh, wait, is this what this looks like? Is this what this looks like? And, we talk about mental health, but we also need to take into consideration emotional health, because you can be okay mentally to make day-to-day decisions and do everything that's routine because it's routine. But when you are emotionally unstable, your emotional health, now you're making erratic decisions and you can't plan to accept the decision that you made because honestly, did I really want to make this decision? Was it an emotional outburst? So I think we really need to start checking in with our emotions and also be cognizant. Make a plan on how to live with the decision that you are making, because you still do have to live.
I agree. And I think a lot of people confuse that though. The emotional and the mental, they don't see that as two separate things within itself. I mean, there's tiers to everything, and that is a different part of the tier. We asked our audience what they do to help cope. Veronica Brown says she colors in her adult coloring book. I've recently picked that up. MomTube says she walks. I picked up running, and oh my God, when I get finished with those runs, that is my me time. I turn off the phone. I let my husband know where I'm going. Put that on. But I say, I don't answer any phone calls. This is me time. This is God time. This is spiritual time. This is outdoor time. By the time I get finished with that 3K run every day, I am feeling a whole lot better. It helps me to get mental clarity.
And you're breathing. We talked about that breathing.
That's right. Exactly. But I want to address a comment. First, let's look at some stats. I'm sorry. This is really important for us to look. Let's look at suicide in adults. In 2020, more than 1.2 million people over the age of 18 reported a suicide attempt in the United States, and hundreds of thousands more presented to hospitals with self-harm injuries. That is a lot. Suicide is the second leading cause of death in the United States among individuals aged 10 through 34 years of age, and the fourth leading cause of death for individuals aged 35 to 44 years. Did you hear what I said? I said 10 years old, y'all. And let's look at this, because a common misconception is it's usually white women that have the highest risk. But a new study looking only at women, researchers from Boston University and Howard University have identified Black women aged 18 through 65. That's pretty much all of our adult life, to have the highest risk for suicide, irrespective of their socioeconomic status. And the researchers concluded this. Results from this model continue to highlight racial disparities in health outcomes and the need to approach public health interventions through a racial justice lens. You cannot tell me that there is not a connection between our health and our race. Our communities are always being disparaged with health insurance, mental health, being able to go and pay. Because a lot of times people say, I can't afford therapy. Even when it's a sliding scale, I can't afford therapy. You can't tell me that there is not a connection to that. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Our wealth expert here, Athena, I know you deal with a lot of taxes and things of that nature, but you mentioned that, thank goodness, your dad had good insurance. So can you explain how you might feel how this could disparage our community?
I'm glad that you brought this up because a lot of people don't understand, and a lot of women don't understand how wealth impacts you in a day-to-day basis. You only think about wealth from a money perspective, but it permeates every aspect of your life. So for example, women on average, right, when we take off to do caregiver duties on average throughout the lifetime, that's about $1 million worth of wealth we sacrifice to take care of the family. When a woman gets divorced, half a woman will experience a loss in lifestyle, and 25% of those women will fall into poverty. When it comes to health issues, like we discussed right now, your financial as a woman will depend on the mental health, the kind of care you can get in birth, the kind of treatment you can expect in that regard. I said, thankfully, I had my dad's good insurance, even though the company does offer me insurance, but I was still under the age of 26. I was still on my parents' plan, and my dad really, really had that great insurance. For the longest time, though, I was hesitant to go to the therapist office because initially I thought I just couldn't afford it. But it got so bad to the point I said, F it, I'm just going to go, because at this point I'm like fighting for my life. And to my surprise, when she ran everything back, she said, I don't know what insurance your dad has, but you don't have to pay anything. So I was like, oh my God. And just to put things into context for people, the premiums, because I checked online to see what it would have cost, $195 per session. So I was getting about $800 worth of therapy every single month. Okay. So, thankfully, I was in that position, but how many women have to decide whether or not I'm going to feed my children, whether or not I'm going to be able to feed myself versus get this mental care that I need? Oftentimes, therapy is not looked at something positive. Even when I had to go, my parents were not receptive about that at all. They were saying things like, oh, I thought I raised you to be strong enough to handle life situations. And, they were not supportive. My family was not supportive whatsoever. The only person that was supportive was my ex-fiance. Thankfully for him, I think he helped save my life. But I want women to understand when we're discussing wealth things, and especially as high performing women, everyone looks at us as we got it. We have things under control. So no one feels like they need to step up and provide the support. And oftentimes we feel ashamed to even ask for the support because somewhere along the line, we got parental or familial or society messaging saying that we were weak for requesting this, or we should have been okay. Or like my parents said, oh, I didn't raise you to be this way. But oftentimes we need it the most because we're often taking on the burdens and muling. I was working 60 to 80 hours a week, going to work at 6 a.m. in darkness and coming home at 12 p.m. in darkness. I did not see daylight for 3 months. That greatly contributed to my loss in mental health at the time. So I want women to understand that more so than looking good and the wigs and the stunning out in these streets, that we need to make these investments into our mental health because that is most important above all.
I agree. And another thing, a lot of people, even in all aspects of life, and I don't want to get political, especially not on this show, but let's look at a simple situation where it is being told, everybody is telling us that Black women and Black men are going to be responsible for carrying this election. What kind of pressure is that? We're all told that it is our responsibility and our responsibility alone to do what we need to do in this election. We're forced that way all the time, but we're still going to discuss this because this is something very important for our community. But we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Fly Nubian Money is now on Spotify. Yes, yes, yes. We are on Spotify. So if you can't watch us, you can listen to us. All you have to do is search Fly Nubian Money and we will appear. All of our episodes. Make sure that you leave a 5-star rating and review so other people that come along and are looking for a good show to watch, they'll follow us too. If you are interested in being on Fly Nubian Money, sorry, I don't have any spaces. I'm just playing. If you are interested in being a queen or a king on Fly Nubian Money for the day, please reach out to me. I'm at info@realvirtual.net. That's info@realvirtual.net. Also, if you need help with your business, go ahead and send me an email for that too. Okay. I've said enough. Now back to the show.
You don't want to miss us. And remember, I said we're setting our clocks back this weekend. So if you happen to, oh my God, miss us on Monday, you need to make sure you go to Spotify, go ahead, heart us up, give us a 5-star rating over there and take us on the road with you. I want to get back to some of the points that Athena did bring up, that, we do need therapy. And we did have a comment that said, Liv said that the answer is Jesus, nothing else works. But I want to go back to Minister Connie, and then I'm going to hit you, Erica. I'm sorry. Because Minister Connie, you have addressed this a little bit, and you've also shown and talked about your experience, and you have therapy as well as being a minister. Can you please expound on this? Because I think this is something we really need to hit. It's a pain point in our community.
We got to balance the things of spiritual. When she said Jesus, we have to balance that because we're natural also. So therefore, I wish I would have got counseling. That's why I'm so involved with the mental health clinic that I partner with to open up, because one thing that happens in Black communities, we are teased. We're teased when we're going through a mental thing. Our family thinks we are weak, like Athena had said. There's a lot of things that are being said about mental health. But, a doctor told me this. He said that Caucasians wear mental health therapy as a badge of honor. They don't care about anything. If they need any kind of counseling, they will get counseling. But we struggle with that, and we shouldn't. I wish I would have had counseling, some therapy, but I didn't go because I'm from a large family and it wasn't good at that time. So I had to show that I was strong. But that's when all the panic attacks and all the anxiety disorders came out, because I had it all inside. So don't carry it inside. But yes, I used to I would have my prayer. I would read my Bible. I would always stay in Psalms. I thought the Psalms was really soothing for me for meditation, because I felt that the Lord was taking on a lot of my stresses and a lot of my problems, because not only was I going through depression, I ended up moving back to Pittsburgh from Minneapolis, and now I had a really good job, and now I'm starting all over again. So it was one thing after another. And sometimes our family and friends have to just come in and say, look, just let me help you. Let me just be still and just, take care of yourself right now, because I was not mentally healthy at all. So, and we all go through that. I'm stronger now. Those things that are behind me is behind me, but it is good to get therapy. It's also to believe in the Lord, because he did help me come through that horrible time in my life. So,
and you become a testimony. So that is all tied in. Now, you were saying you stayed in the scriptures. For me, it's the hymns. It's the old school hymns.
Okay.
When I need to wail it out, when I need to work it out. I am pulling out that old school Baptist hymnal, and we are going through all of them. And I don't care if anybody in the neighborhood hears. I mean, it's just my way of getting it out, because that my singing it means the world to me. And I feel like that's what God has given me as a gift. And in order to get through it, I give the gift back. And it's a give and take thing. That's the way I can talk to him the most.
Exactly.
But Erica, I know you had a lot, something to say on this, and I don't want to ignore what you have to say on this as well.
You know, I grew up as a PK, so I had the pleasures of seeing, you know, the shut-ins. We gonna fast and pray and weep and whine for 3 days. And you know what? While I appreciate those days, when in one of the chapters in my book, I talked about, look at the history of the women in your family and look and see if you are repeating that history. I've seen the women in my family weep and pray. I've seen them go and sit in church and, you know, do the shut-ins and, you know, eat there, cry there, whine there. You know, they coming over to the house, you know, they're going to clean the house and baptize the house. Sometimes the Lord is saying, yes, that's great. But I also anointed a brother down the street to be a therapist for you to go see them. You know, God blesses people to be within the medical profession for a reason. I have run into many people who are saved, baptized by fire, who are medical professionals, and we have to utilize them. You know, start looking for people. Yes, Jesus, listen, that is my rock. That's my homeboy. We talk all day, every day. And I have heard the Lord seriously tell me, you know, you need to go call so-and-so to get XYZ taken care of, because he's going to give them the knowledge, you know, to actually pour into you. Sometimes, especially as women, we are so used to filling up every cup around us that we completely forget, like, oh, wow, I'm on empty. This cup is dry. You ever see a cup so dry, it starts to turn colors? And now, so that's what we start turning into. And it is okay to go get therapy and go sit on the couch, sit on the chair, fall on the floor, cry, get it out. But please, I implore every person, not just women, my book is for everybody, but sit down and look at the root of the family and look at the struggles that you're having. And I guarantee you're going to see a pattern of it. And if you want to break that chain, if you want to break that generational occurrence, go get that therapy.
I'm telling you, my minister is a therapist. You know, I don't, he's a therapist outside of being behind the pulpit. And I don't understand why people don't see that you can have both, and that God has given us all talents. I will tell you, my minister has a talent for what he does with people. He has empathy, he has compassion, and he has the scriptures, and his faith helps him to be what his life journey is. There's nothing wrong with including this into your life and listening for that word. Now, listen, I know we're talking about a very serious subject here today, but I also want to remind you that you are watching Fly Nubian Money, and we are here 5 days a week. And we are on a lot of different pages and a lot of different platforms. You've heard us talk about Spotify. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on everything. So we have a huge reach. And if you have a business that you would like to help grow, this is your chance to connect with potential clients. And they're eager to learn about your business. So all you have to do is send us an email to info@realvirtual.net. That's info at REELVIRTUAL.net. And in the subject line, I want you to put Fly Nubian Money ad. And that way we can send you an ad description so that you can see where you can begin to advertise with us. Now, you know you love us because we love you too. And there are so many of our viewers and our listeners who also are looking for good companies to do business with. Like-minded people like to do business with like-minded people. So make sure that you get that in, and we will get you that ad information sheet, and let's get you started on a good path to new clients. I have a question for you, Joe. We talked about taking care of ourselves. Okay. We've talked about going to therapy, but what tips can you give us, or on when we're on the outside looking in at someone that's hurting? So how can we be good friends? How can we be the good community that is helping that person that is really going through something? Because a lot of the times people are just quiet, or they just say, you just need Jesus. So what do we do? What kind of words can we possibly do to help someone?
Well, the first thing I'm always telling people is don't give advice because advice is coming through your lived experience. So, you're telling somebody, oh, well, it could be worse, or, and you're minimizing their experience instead of validating their experience. So, no advice, validation next is key. Let's, tell me more, ask probing questions instead of just, downplaying whatever that person is experiencing or going through. Depression, especially to the point of wanting to die and suicidal ideation, is a lonely feeling, right? It's a lonely feeling. You could be surrounded in a room full of people who care for you and love you and not be able to feel any of that love, right? So telling somebody who says, I don't feel love, well, all these people love you is more than likely going to make that person feel worse. So the response is, why don't you feel love? Or, what are you going through? What can I do to help? Anything that involves listening and not trying to give advice or push your lived experience or perspective on that person in that moment, and try to be encouraging enough to, get that person to a space where they can get some help. That's what we have to do. But again, I'm gonna say what I said at the top when I started talking. Do not push your judgment and your advice onto a person who is struggling. You are only more than likely going to make that person feel worse.
That is great advice, because your perspective may not be exactly the thing that they're going through either. Everybody's experience is different. Big Namak says, I can't stress enough about having great friends and loved ones in your life. That is true. And now, so because of that, and I'm going to tie that into you, Athena, you said your family was like, we thought we taught you how to be a little more stronger. But then you said, your ex-fiance was the supportive one in this. How so, and how important was that for you? How did he help you? What kind of words did he use to help you get to the good part?
All right, this is when Black men, you're going to get your crown today, honey, because I know I beat y'all up on some other days, but today you're going to get your crown today. So my ex-fiance was everything. And I will actually say the men that I've had long-term committed relationships have been positive. So at the time I started my career in Atlanta, I was working those crazy hours. The first 3 weeks in, I got that major car accident. I was actually supposed to fly to meet him, right? What ended up happening, he drove 2 states to pick me up at the hospital and take me home. I was in shock. Afterwards, I was trembling through the whole night. He held me the whole night. He was the only person to come and get me. None of my family visited me at the hospital, and no one came to see me afterwards. So let that sink in. So he wasn't even my boyfriend at the time. We were just dating. So, he became my boyfriend after that, because I was just like, he responded how he needed to respond. And I'm definitely a certain type of way. If you do not respond when I need you, we can't continue after that. So we were together, and he made such a difference. He was the one who encouraged me to go to therapy. He was the one, he was solid in every way a woman requires and needs a man to be. So I will always love and respect him for that. And honestly, he has made it difficult to date because he had set the bar so goddamn high. But, he definitely displayed a level of integrity and accountability and a respect as a man and leadership that, I'm always forever grateful for. And without him, I don't know, where I would have ended up, because my family definitely was not supportive at all.
So you say more so actions than words. Were there words that were said that helped really hit your heart?
Actions. I'm an acts of service girl, so your actions going, need to come through. But yes, the words were helpful. I wanted my parents or someone to come and see me. The only person that could have was my brother, but they didn't. My mom was on a cruise at the time. She put a Facebook post about her baby, but she didn't actually see her baby. And my dad, what I will say he did was he came and collected my car and took care of the financial aspects. And that is a thing that I need Black families to understand. Just because you can cut a check or just because you can, solve certain issues doesn't mean that the emotional support component is not as important. In fact, that is even more so important than what those other things, because I feel like emotionally, a lot of us are walking around impaired because we do not receive that emotional support within our family systems, even though they physically made sure we were fed and went to school. We're walking around and suffering mental illnesses and all these emotional issues with each other and mishandling each other because we never got emotionally fed.
Interesting, very interesting. So you're more of an action person. Now listen, we're almost done, but I do want to give you a very important reminder for those of you who are watching us. We have been talking about something that is pretty heavy. Of course, we can laugh and chuckle as well as that, because laughter is also another form of medicine that we all need. But I do want to remind you that if you are going through any of this, if you are feeling unworthy, if you're feeling like you don't need to be here on this earth, there is help for you. There is a national suicide prevention lifeline, and you can reach them by dialing 988 anywhere in the United States of America. And it doesn't matter if it's you or someone else that's in crisis, or you're considering suicide or not. You just dial that number to reach the toll-free line, and you can speak directly to a trained crisis counselor. And calls are free, confidential, and available 24/7. So if you feel like you don't have anyone to talk to, yes, you do. Yes, you do. We want you to understand and keep this in your mind, that this number 988 will get you the help that you need to get you started on that journey. Now, we have gone through this hour so fast. But it was critical. We appreciate everyone's comments and input for the things that they have said, our viewership family. But it's time for final thoughts. So I'm going to start with you, Minister Connie. Can you please give us your final thoughts, and where can we find you?
You can find me at ConnieSpearman.com, and just leave me an email. But my final thought is just to take care of your mental health. If you're in a crisis right now, reach out to a therapist. Something I didn't do, I regret it, because it caused me to have anxiety and panic disorders. And you don't want to go there, because it is a very, very hard place to be. It's going to come out some kind of way. If you're in a relationship and you're making that decision of, should I stay, should I leave? I tell women all the time, if it's that time of the month, don't make no decisions. If you're emotional at that time, just wait and just pray it through and ask the Lord what direction you should go into. But take care of your mental health and take care of yourself.
I think that is very important, because you know what? You can't love unless you love yourself. And sometimes we have to find the strength to do that. Mm-hmm. Joe, what are your final thoughts, and where can we find you?
Okay, so really quickly, I'll say the first time I tried to commit suicide or attempted suicide, my wife found out by picking me up at the hospital in the middle of the night, because I have gotten so good at masking what I was going through that she had no idea that I was even suffering. And there might be some people in your vicinity that are doing the same thing. And then the second time, she was able to talk me down because I was more vocal and she was more aware. And then I sat around and I said, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And I had to take the initiative to check myself into an institution where I got the help I needed and I got better, which led me on a journey that's got me sitting in front of you right now as a therapist. And at the time I was not a therapist. So, certain words like, instead of saying it could have been worse, let's try to say, I'm sorry that happened, or that doesn't sound so bad. Maybe let's try it. That must have been really hard. And just remember, whatever it is you're saying or doing, ultimately give yourself grace, because it's not your responsibility to pull someone up out of their hole. And it is a responsibility of their own. All you can do is be a support. And that's it. That's all you can do. Okay. I see a lot of people saying, go check on your friends, go check on your friends. But that external validation, if that's what a person needs to survive, then they're probably not going to survive because that's not consistent. It needs to come from within. And it's your responsibility to say, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I got to get some help. And that's what you do. You get some help. You can find me at realuconsulting.com. Joe Corley on all socials. Get my followers up because I need some. I'm new to the game. So tap in and follow me for, a little bit of tidbits of information like the one I just gave you. Y'all be well.
Tap, tap, tap. Make sure that you follow. I always say I stalk all my sisters and brothers on these panels. So you want to make sure that you do the same. Stalking in a good way, y'all. Not crazy, a good way. All right, Athena, what are your final thoughts and where can we find you? And maybe you can give us a word or two that he said to you that really clicked.
Listen, like I said, that support is very important. And wherever you have to find it, whether it's a family member, whether it's a man that loves you, and ladies, a man that loves you is going to uphold you, come through for you every single time, and instill greatness within you. Okay. Even the example with my ex-fiance, he used to say, "You're my beautiful African queen" every day. So that is the level and standard that we need to hold ourselves. I know we discussed a lot. I know we discussed suicide and dealing with our emotions and how these things, how wealth impacts our mental, emotional, and spiritual health. For the ladies, I'm having an event, online boot camp called the Wealthy Woman Shift. It is at Eventbrite on this link. So sign up if you want to understand how your emotions, your relationships, and your support systems are impacted by wealth and money and how to create that abundance for yourself. And if you are not a woman, please support one. Maybe sign up your sister, your aunt, your mother, whomever. My name is Athena Gardner. I'm a CPA and wealth coach, and you can find me at wewealthwoman.com, at wewealthwoman on all socials, and the We Wealth Woman podcast on also podcast platforms. Okay.
And she is there because I also stalk her too, goddess to goddess, because my social handle is Realty Goddess. I love that, Athena.
And shout out to all the strong, supportive Black men who support the queens and show up when we need you to and being a pillar of support, honey.
That's right. So, Erica, how are you going to follow up with your final thoughts and where we can find you?
Ooh, Lord, that was a lot. Listen, you are loved. You are desired. If nobody said to you today that I love you, I'm going to say it to you. I love you. Because you know what? I've had those days where I felt like nobody loved me. I felt like the world had turned its back on me, especially when I had showed up for the world. When we show up for everyone, please do it out of the kindness of your heart, but don't set it as a standard of expectation that you're going to receive that back. You're only one person. So you have to start carving off enough time for you. And your magic word is going to be no. Sometimes you have to say no to everyone else so that you can keep something for yourself. My name is Erica Lewis. I am the author of Faith in Transition, and you can find me across all socials at Miss Erica Renee.
I love that because you know what? No is not a bad word. And most people think that it is. That's one of the things that I had to learn in my life.
No sets boundaries. That's your boundary. When you start saying no, and it's okay. If anybody makes you feel guilty about saying no, watch them.
Those are the ones you need to watch. And here is my final thoughts. You are not alone. We are here for a purpose. We have a life journey that was given to us at birth, and we're supposed to walk in it. And sometimes the path gets a little dark and sometimes you can't see your way. It is at that time that you need to pull in the lights of others. I always like to say you have got to be the light. But when you see that someone else's light is dim, you need to light it for them. And I've had a lot of lights along the way. And I hope that I also have been able to light others. This topic is very dear to me. Twice in my life, I didn't think I should be here, but thank God, other people's lights and God's light made me see that I still have a purpose here. So make sure that you know that you love yourself enough to know that you are here for a reason. And you can find me at bit.ly/Laura Key Info. I have a lot of great resources there for you, and you're going to find it all in one row. So I hope that you do tap into me as well. So this has been a really great conversation. This conversation reminds us how powerful emotions like love and regret and a longing for stability can be shaping our lives every day. Keontae's story speaks to the universal desire for love and security, especially in times of difficulty. Relationships aren't always easy, and it's okay to feel torn between the past and moving forward. As we continue these conversations, let's think about ways we can offer support and encouragement for those who are going through the same thing, and how we also can take note of that and help guide them in the right direction. We thank you for being here today. We absolutely love our viewership family. You are family to us, and we love having you here. We are here Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to fall back this weekend so you don't miss us on Monday. In the meantime, have a beautiful weekend. We love you. Peace out.